Do you like sport bikes but don't like how uncomfortable they are? Would you like to take a sport bike on a long ride, perhaps with your special someone? Well, that is what sport tours are for. And today we have Triumph's middleweight entry, the Tiger Sport 660. It's time to go beyond the ride. The bike is powered by a 660cc inline 3-cylinder 12-valve liquid-cooled dual overhead cam engine that punches out 80 horsepower and 64 newton-meters of torque. Stopping power is by Nissan and consists of twin discs up front and a single-disc rear setup with ABS. Keeping bumps at bay, you get a non-adjustable Showa inverted fork and preload adjustable rear shock. The Tiger Sport 660 runs on 120/70 ZR17s at the front and 180/55 ZR17 rear wheels. A nice touch that Triumph did with the tires on this bike is have a 90-degree valve stem. And in all honesty, I don't understand why all bikes don't have that, because it's such an easier access when you need to put air in your tires. And by the way, these are tubeless. Now, you do get a nice big dash which shows you all the necessary information that you need, including speedometer, tachometer, odometer, a clock, a date, and you even have a option for the Triumph connectivity, which will allow you to connect your phone to the bike, as well as even control your GoPro. Now, the windscreen is adjustable, and you can actually do it on the fly. Relatively simple. That's gonna come in really handy when you're putting in the miles on the expressways. Now, some of the other features that the bike has, aside from ABS, is you have a slipper clutch, you have an up and down quick shifter, you have traction control, you have two riding modes, rain and road. Now, because it is a sport tour, you're probably going to want to put luggage, and Triumph did think about that. That's why they put these little attachment points right here on the sides of the bike, and it works really well with the panniers of Triumph. It only takes a couple of seconds to put it on and off. And there's also a seat for a pillion plus grab rails right here. Now, the styling is a little bit more, at least for me, seems like it's Japanese inspired. It is fairly sporty, especially with the fairings up front, but not excessively aggressive. Now, the side of the bike and the back, well, it's more naked, except for the front, right? I mean, that's really where the sport touring comes into play. You know, the more I look at the front of the bike, it really seems like it's more of a Japanese bike than a British bike, right? I don't know. It's nice that you get the LED DRLs though. The curb weight of the bike is 206 kilograms, which is relatively light for this bike. The fuel tank capacity is 17 liters, which for a sport tourer, honestly could be better. However, you do get 22 kilometers per liter, which is pretty good. The seat height is 835 millimeters. I am 5'6" with a 764 millimeter inseam, and it is quite hot, by the way. That's the situation. That's the way it looks. Now, I want to point out something, and it becomes a little bit more obvious when I'm out on a ride, but the dash, which is pretty big, nice and visible, is not exactly in my line of sight with the ergonomics of the bike. I have to kind of look down to see the dash. I mean, you don't really look at the dash when you're riding, but it's just something that you have to, I guess, get used to, because you kind of do this, or at least with your eyes, look down if you want to look at, if you need to look at the speed, if you need to look at the gear indicator or anything else, and then you look up again when you're looking at the road. So not exactly in my line of sight, but perhaps something that if I have the bike for a little bit longer, I would get used to. All right, let's do a quick sound test. The screaming triple of Trident. Yep, it sounds exactly like the Trident. The seat is really comfortable and with lots of room. So if you got a bigger booty, you'll definitely be more comfortable on this bike. And the position is extremely comfortable. It's very upright. So it's definitely not like a sport bike in that sense, right? It definitely is a touring bike. And you can rack up a lot of miles or kilometers sitting in this saddle and have no problems or issues whatsoever. Especially because the handlebars are nice and pretty high. You do have to lean forward just a little bit, but not at an uncomfortable angle. Now, I did mention about the dash, right? Because I don't know if you can see it on the GoPro, but if you're looking straight, you don't see the dash whatsoever. In fact, you kind of have to, well, maybe not exactly tilt your head down, but you do have to look down a little bit more than I would like, just to see the odometer, the speedometer, and the rest of the stuff on the dash. And you kind of have to take your eye off the road for a split second just to look at all the information on the dash. Something that I don't normally do. And I guess you don't really look at the dash too often when you're riding, but if you're not familiar with the bike, it's something that you probably want to see what gear you're on or so on and so forth. And it's something that's just, I guess it's just something that you need to get used to. Now, as mentioned a while ago, this bike shares the same engine as a Trident 660. And if you've been following this channel, I'm sure you know how much I love that bike. And the truth is, I still prefer the Trident because that's really more my preferred look, more my preferred style. But honestly, the more I ride this, the more it grows on me. And I do appreciate Triumph adding the provisions for the panniers, because if I owned this bike, I definitely would have those, because this would be the choice. This would be the bike I would use to go on long rides, whether it's to Sagada, Baguio, so on and so forth, right? This would be the machine I would use because that's what it was built for. It's built to go far. And yes, it is built to go far, but it is also very flickable. And it would do really well on some twisties. And probably even if you wanted to, you take it on the track, it would perform pretty well there as well. But that's not what it's for, right? It's you're really buy this bike to put on the mileage. When you think about the competition of the Tiger Sport 660, what comes to mind really is the Versys 650, the middleweight V-Strom, the middleweight GS. Now, I would not consider the Tenere 700 as competition because this really isn't an off-road machine. Maybe if it was, I don't know, set up a little bit differently, but the way it is out of the showroom, not something that I would take off-road at all. Yeah, so you do buy this bike to ride far, right? I mean, that's the purpose of it. And it'll do that very well. It's comfy, relatively fuel efficient, pretty basic, so it shouldn't be too difficult if you need to do some adjustments when you're out of the city and out of the, or not near a Triumph showroom. The triple sounds so good. It's not too loud, it's just right. And the up and down quick shifter works really, really well. Now, aside from long rides, this bike works well in the city as a daily commuter. It's pretty easy to filter, although I do feel a little bit of the heat, but not an excessive amount after some time on the saddle. Or maybe it's just really summer in the Philippines right now, and it's just really hot. It is a very easy bike to ride. It's very beginner friendly. And if you're moving, if you're coming from a smaller displacement or coming from a scooter, this would be a nice choice because it's something that does not scare you, right? I mean, once you twist the throttle and you ride a little bit more spirited, it definitely is a lot of fun. But if you just wanna be a little bit more chill, and if you're not a super experienced rider, this bike will not scare you whatsoever. So you feel like you're in full control of what the bike can do. And the truth is, I really wasn't that excited to borrow this bike. But the more I ride it, the more I look at it, the more I appreciate it. She looks better with time. And isn't that what relationships are supposed to be like? So in conclusion, it is a very good bike. In fact, it's so good that it can be your only bike because it's comfortable enough to take on long rides. It's quick enough that you can have a lot of fun with it. It's easy enough to ride that you can ride around the city with no problems whatsoever. And At the starting price tag of 555,000 Philippine pesos, the Triumph Tiger Sport 660 can be competitive with the Japanese Big Four middleweight sport tours. For more information about this bike and other MCs out there, log on to www.motodeal.com.ph. This has been Gino Rufino. Hope you guys enjoyed on Beyond the Ride.